so we are solving compound inequalities in section 6.4. So a compound inequality consists of two separate inequalities joined by and or. So the word and or the word or. So you would read this from the center left and then go back to the center right, because you're going to read from the variable first. So you're going to say x is greater than 1 or x is less than 2. I'm sorry, and. X is greater than 1 and x has to be less than 2. Okay, so we're going to look at the graph of a compound inequality. So when you have, this is all messed up on the screen. So when you have x is greater than -2, that would be an open circle going right at -2. If you were to graph x is less than or equal to 1, you would have a closed circle at 1 going left. If you put those together, those arrows would overlap each other because one goes left, one goes right, and you would create a solid line in the middle. So that's where we get the and from. So x is greater than -2 and x has to be less than or equal to 1. So the only numbers that would fit in this solution would be these numbers on that blue line. That would work for this solution right here. So we're going to practice graphing those. So here's what a graph would look like if we were to say or. So x is greater than or equal to 0. So you're going to have a closed circle at 0 going right. X is less than -1. So closed circle, or I'm sorry, open circle at -1 going left. And if you were to put those two together, they don't overlap each other. One goes left, one goes right. So we would say or, because it's not including anything here in the middle. Okay. So we are going to translate the verbal phrase into an inequality and then graph it. And this isn't always everybody's favorite thing to do. Okay, so all real numbers that are greater than -2. So I'm going to use x, and it says greater than -2. And less than 3. So again, x less than 3. Okay, so I'm going to combine these together. So x is greater than -2, so open circle at -2. Greater than is going to go which way?
Right.
Right. And I'm not gonna draw my line very long because they're gonna connect. And then x is less than 3. So open circle at 3, then I'm gonna go left, and then I'm just going to connect my lines. Okay, so then I'm going to write my compound inequality. So I'm going to have x in the middle. I'm going to have my smaller number on the left. So x is greater than -2. I'm reading from right to left right now. X is greater than -2. Then I'm going to go back to x and go from left to right. So x is less than 3. So you have to go center left and then center right to read that. Okay, so we're going to keep practicing that. So the next one, all real numbers that are greater than or equal to -3. So this time we're having the or equal to. So x is greater than or equal to -3 and less than 5. So x is less than 5. So then I'm going to graph this. So closed circle at -3. And what direction am I going?
Right.
I'm going right. And then open circle at 5. And I'm going left. And I'm just going to connect them. Okay, so then I'm gonna write my inequality, compound inequality together. So x, and I'm gonna go left to right, sorry, right to left, is greater than or equal to -3. Then I'm gonna go back to x and go left to right. So x is less than 5. Can somebody give me one solution that would work for this? Like what?
-1, 3.
Correct. -1, 3. Both of those would be x could equal those. You guys see where we're getting those? They're on the number line, or they're shaded on the number line. Okay. So all real numbers that are less than 0. So x has to be less than 0 or greater than or equal to 2. Greater than or equal to 2. So open circle at 0, and 0 is not on here.
There's not a 0 or a 2 on here.
Yeah, so just go in the middle, like this. Open circle at 0, and I'm gonna be going left. And then open circle, close circle at 2, and I have to go right. So instead of this being an and, this is an or. Well, we also know that from the words. So we're going to write this as x is less than 0 or x is greater than or equal to 2. So when it's an and, you can combine it together like that, and or you write or in the middle. Okay, so we're going to go through this last one. You guys want to start on it and then try to figure it out? All right, so what do you get for your first part of your inequality? Somebody share.
X is less than -1.
Okay. And then the next part.
X is greater than or equal to 4.
Okay, so we're going to open circle at -1, go left, close circle at 4, go right. So if I write this all together, I have x is less than -1 or x is greater than or equal to 4.
Why would you ever have like why would you ever need it to be like the or? Like, why would you ever need there to be that gap in between?
That's more likely to happen in like when you get into algebra 2 and you're starting to find your zeros of a function, and that'll make more sense later. Sorry, I know that's not a good answer, but later on when you graph parabolas and they look like a parabola looks like this or like this, then you'll start having solutions that are like not going to include the middle. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so the next part, at an auction, the lowest bid for an autographed trading card is $20. The highest bid is $54. Write and graph a compound inequality that describes the possible bids. So x has to be greater than or equal to. Okay, we're going to include $20. X has to be greater than or equal to 20. And the highest bid is 54. So did we do or equal to? Less than or equal to 54. And then we would graph this. And I don't have a line on my paper. Okay, so what I would do is those numbers are really far apart. I would start with I just would go by tens. And just kind of eyeball what 54 is. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is actually solving a compound inequality. And you're going to follow the same steps you do for a multi-step equation, except when you multiply or divide by a negative, you have to switch your signs. That's the only difference. So what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So if this was a one-step equation, what would I do first? Subtract 5. So I'm going to do that to both sides. So I'm going to subtract 5. I'm going to actually do that 3 times. Okay, so if I were to continue this problem, I'm going to have x in the middle. My signs didn't change because I didn't add, multiply, or divide by a negative. So I'm going to keep my signs what they are up here. And then 2 minus 5. Negative 3. Then 9 minus 5 is 4. So that would be my answer. Also, sometimes it's easier to, so if you look at the next one, that's more than a one-step equation because we have a negative in front of z. So sometimes it's easier when I have more than one-step equation to split it apart. So I'm going to basically write, I'm going to ignore this greater than or less than 3, and I'm going to write this side. And then I'm going to ignore the negative 7, and I'm going to write the right side. Because when there's more than one step, for me, it's easier to split it apart and solve 2 times. You don't have to, but I think it's easier to keep track of when you do. So first step on both of them is going to be what? Adding 1. So I'm going to have negative 6 is less than negative z. And negative z is less than 4. Okay, and then my next step would be what? Divide by negative 1, and then I have to flip my sign. So 6 would be greater than z, or z less than 6. And then okay, so now if I rewrite it back together, the smaller number needs to go on the left. So this time I'm going to have this on the left, negative 4. So I'm going to read it backwards. Negative 4. So z is greater than negative 4. So I have to do that here, reading from right to left. Z is greater than negative 4. And then this one I would read from right to left again. Z is less than 6. So z is less than 6. So sometimes it helps to say it out loud so you get the sign in the right direction. Okay, we're going to keep practicing this because I know this is not super easy. All right, so this problem, is this a 1 or a 2-step?
1.
1. So when it's a 1-step, I don't generally split them apart. So I have to add 5 to both sides. So I'm going to have negative 2, and I'm going to just keep my signs the same. Less than x and less than 9.
Wait, why is there one step? Is it, because there's no multiplication?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's no coefficient with the x. So it's just 1 step. Okay, so the next one has more than one step. But are you going to do any sign flipping here? No. So if I am going to do, okay, if there's more than one step, but there's nothing involved with changing any signs, then I think it's okay to keep it together. If you end up having to flip a sign like you have a negative by your variable, then I would recommend you split it apart because otherwise you're going to get your signs mixed up. So this one we could keep together. So what would I do first? Subtract 4 from both sides. So I would have 6 less than or equal to 2y less than or equal to 20. And then I have one more step. Divide everything by 2. So 3 less than or equal to y less than or equal to 10. So since there were no signs changing, I would say keep it together. Okay, so look at the next one. More than one step, and are you going to flip signs?
Yes.
Yes, so I would split it apart. So -1 is less than or equal to -5t plus 2. And then -5t plus 2 is less than or equal to 4. Okay, so my first step is subtract 2. And then my next step would be what? Divide by -5 and change your sign. So you're going to get positive 3/5 is greater than or equal to t. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. And divide by -5. So t is greater than or equal to -2/5. Okay, so then I need to combine it back together. So which number goes first?
2/5.
The -2/5. So I'm going to read it. T is greater than or equal to -2/5. So -2/5, and then I'm going to have to go from right to left. So T is greater than or equal to -2/5. And then I'm going to go back to this one and go left to right. So T is less than or equal to 3/5. Okay, so the next one that we have is it's a compound, or I'm sorry, it's an or, not an and. So the or problems are already split apart for you. So you basically are just solving two different inequalities. So for this one, I would subtract 3, and I would have 2x is less than 6, divide by 2, x is less than 3. And then 3x is greater than 18, divide by 3, x is greater than 6. So all I have to do is rewrite them with the word or in the middle. So x is less than 3 or x is greater than 6. Okay, so I want you guys to try this one. So you'll need to pause your video and do this problem. Okay, so you should end up with x is less than -2, or h is, not x, sorry, h is less than -2, or h is greater than 6. Okay, so I would like you to pause your video and do this problem. Okay, so if we go through this problem, so like right here, that's a -4. We're going to divide by a +4 so we don't flip the sign. So we would have x is less than or equal to -1, or x is greater than 4 as our answer. Okay? And then your homework is page 384, a textbook page.